Welcome to the Small Giants Fishbowl. This topic is energy and leadership. A disconnect in your energy and intentional leadership presence costs you health, relationships, and money in our economy, and now is not the time to not be addressing this. The impact on business is profound. Anise Kavanaugh once pulled a $60,000 contract because she didn't want to deal with her potential client's negative leadership energy for one more minute. It would have taken a simple shift in their intention and energy to have closed that deal. She was sold until they met and talked the deal through. How could she do this? Anise Kavanaugh's approach to help people integrate intentional, energetic presence with solid leadership, communication, and collaboration skills. Okay, here we go.
So the work that I do, it's all around the idea that our presence is what creates our impact. So I do a lot of work with companies around leadership development and how they show up and culture shifting and values working, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about today on this call. But the core ingredient to everything that I do in this work is around the idea that our presence is what actually creates our impact. And the process that I use to teach people that is called IEP, which stands for Intentional Energetic Presence. And it's one of those things that's actually easier just to experience it than to have me sit and explain it to you guys. So for the next 45 minutes, I want to invite everybody on this call to really notice what the energy and the intention is that you're bringing to the table right here. Even just this call, and even for you, Kat, I know you're really busy in a bakery right now, just to notice kind of how present you are on the call, how you're showing up, and also what you're wanting to get out of this work. Because what I have found is that if we can increase our intention around that, we can have a very, very different kind of call. It will be even better. The other thing that I found is that if there's anything happening in your company right now that you're not loving or that's really challenging, 9 times out of 10, it's somehow directly related to something that you're doing energetically, either internally or externally. Okay, so I'll get into that in just a few minutes. All right, here's what I'd love for everybody. I want you to just notice, don't move a muscle. Okay, don't move a muscle, and I want you to look at the screen right now. Okay, and I want you to notice what your default presence is right now on the screen. Okay, just notice it. And then I want you to check in with your body, and on a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being you feel absolutely exhausted and you wish you could just go back to bed, like you're just having a hard time even being here, and 10 being you feel like you could go run a marathon, I want you to just give me a rating of 0 to 10 of where your energy's at right now, physically speaking. So just give me your numbers. We've got a small enough group that we can do it really quick. Aaron, how about you?
Probably an 8 or 9.
8 or 9, cool. Glenn?
7.
Kevin Patterson?
Probably 6.
6. Kat, we can't hear you. Oh, she's an 8. Okay. Love it. See, she's totally present because she's texting. How about you, Kevin?
7.
7, got it. I thought you said Kevin. Okay, great. So now just notice that's your physical energy. And when I do these gauges, this is nothing. A 4 is not necessarily better than a 10. A 4 is not worse than a 10. A 10 is not better than a 4. It's just information. So one of the things that people will do when they start to learn this work is they will actually start to integrate these energy checks in just to kind of get a feel for where the team's at before they even start doing what they're going to do. So that was your physical energy. Now for your mental energy, this is even more important. A 0 means that you're having a hard time staying present. You're really tempted right now to check your email, to check your phone. You keep thinking about what's going on, after this call, before the call. Maybe you've got a customer meeting later today. You've got to sign up on a child's permission slip. Like there could be a million things that are going through our head, right? So 0 is you're having a really hard time staying present with me at all. 10 is you are hanging on every single word. You are so here, you're ready to roll. Where would you guys put yourself?
Well, I'm 10 there.
I'm a 2.
A 2? Okay, great. A 2 for Aaron. Awesome. Glenn?
You know what? I got my phone off, so I'm an 8 right now. I can't look at it.
Okay, Kevin?
I'll say 6.
A 6? Okay, great. And
Cat
Kat?
came in at an 8.
At an 8. Awesome. Okay, great. So so whatever is getting in the way for you. So for you, especially Aaron, if you're finding that 2 or whatever number you just gave yourself, if you're finding that feels really good and you want to be there, perfectly fine, leave it alone. But if you're finding that you'd actually like to be even more mentally present, whatever is getting in the way of you being fully in this room right now, I want you to just write yourself a little note. So it might be, well, I've got to get back to that email. I don't know where we're going with this. Why are we doing this? Like, just write yourself a quick little note of what you need to get present.
I'm present.
Okay, cool. All right. This
I
has a
just
big.
know I'm doing other things, and now I'm not because I'm aware that of where we're going. But
I promise you, if you give me 45 minutes of your time today to be fully present, this will have ripple effects for the rest of your life. Not to sound totally overpromising.
I'm ready for the change.
It's only as good as you are at integrating it. But if you listen, the more present we are together, the more we're going to get out.
Absolutely.
And the last thing I want you to look at is energetically speaking. And I'm going to use words like energy and vibration today, just a little bit. But energetically speaking, I want you to notice what is the energy that you're putting into the room. I asked you earlier to look at your default presence. What is the energy you're putting in? So a 0 is this guy that I'm sure you guys have all seen. Right? We've seen this guy, right? I have a hard time even pretending to do it. But his energy is really low. He's like, oh my God, he's checking his phone, and he's actually detracting from the energy of the room, right? And a 10 is your presence in this room, and I'm thinking of us as in a room, or in this fishbowl. Your presence in this fishbowl is actually a contribution just by you being here. Right? So it's not about, being happy or sad or high energy or low energy. It's literally about how is your presence and your quality of presence serving this group or actually detracting from it. And what happened, this is harder to rate yourself, but I'd be curious, where would you guys put yourselves? Aaron?
I'm not sure. I lean back, but that doesn't mean that I'm not listening, and I never cross my arms.
Yeah.
Because I'm always actively listening. So, I don't think I distract from it, but I guess maybe you might tell me something different. I mean, I could do this, but that wouldn't change. To me, I'm listening better back.
Right. And this could be really creepy too, right? I mean, so you want it. So the point is just to, whatever it is for you, I want your attention on what is the quality of presence you're bringing into the room. That's it. So if sitting back and being really present, if you can bring a great quality of presence and really be with this room, we're in great shape. If this is actually detracting from it, and you have to read, you kind of have to, it's a little bit harder on a fishbowl, but you kind of have to read what's happening around you. Like how is how you're showing up having an impact on the people around you?
Absolutely.
Really quick, Kevin, for you, what would you put yourself?
Which Kevin?
I'm sorry, Kevin Pedersen.
Oh, I don't know. I've always kind of thought if I lean on the edge of my seat, then I'm kind of that type of person when I come to meetings, like an edge of the seat type person. So I've kind of purposely done that for a long time, just so that others feel like I'm there and pay attention. So it's just my mannerism, I think, that way. But I don't know. Like when I come to meetings, my whole thing is that I'm there for the meeting. I'm not there to divide my attention. So I think I hope I'm engaging when I'm at meetings. So I'm hope I'm on the high side. Anyways, I don't know exactly where I am.
Great. Yeah, this is the one. This is harder. This is harder to kind of rate for ourselves. But again, the point is just to have your attention on it. Of just what I've noticed is that the minute people start to think, "Ooh, how am I showing up in a room?" their energy shifts, and it usually shifts a little bit more for the better. So I spent a little bit extra time on that, and for the rest of you, just kind of gauge yourself and just notice. Glenn, how are you doing?
I'm a 9.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
But I was mentally prepared and ready for this, and I'm standing up right now, and I'm forward with my presence here because I knew that the folks attending this are going to get 45 minutes of gold. So I'm 100% game, and I hope that's coming through for everybody.
I feel it. I'm feeling it. Can you guys feel it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So here's the deal. The reason why I spend a little bit extra time on that is because to me, 70% of this work that I do with people is around awareness. The minute they start to notice how they're showing up and how they're having an impact on the people around them, it shifts. And we're contagious, especially as leaders in your company. Your energy, your presence is absolutely contagious. So if you walk into a room and you're not really paying attention to how you're showing up and the intentions you have behind whatever you're bringing into that room, your employees are going to adopt that. So especially when you've got things that are really challenging going on, or you're losing revenue, or just things are difficult, if you're not really good at holding your state and being intentional about how you show up in that room, it's going to have an impact. And what happens is we move so quickly that oftentimes we're living, from our head up. We forget to tap into our bodies, right? We move really quickly. We have a lot of stuff. We're not mentally present. And we forget that we have this amazing, it's like, I think of it as a superpower. We have this superpower to be able to shift the energy of the room, the energy of the team, the energy of an organization, actually, by the way that the leader shows up. So have you guys ever been I'll just give you a couple examples. Have you guys ever been in a meeting where you go in and 6 people are in a really good mood and there's 2 people that are not, and you can see the entire energy of the room just tank? You guys ever had that happen? Or you have something happening in your business and a little thing happens and then all of a sudden it becomes this really big thing? It's usually because the lowest vibration in a room will win, unless the people in that room are really good at holding their state. Make sense? So I usually get the phone calls from people, and sometimes from people in this community. Get a phone call where people will say, "Wow, we really need help with leadership skills. Can you come in? Can you lead a call on how to give really good feedback, or how to find values? Can you do values clarification with our team? Can you help us map out some strategy?" All these different really important business and leadership skills. But what happens is they want to focus on the skills, and if we focus just on the skills, we're missing a huge part of the puzzle. Because what's actually even more important than the skills is the intention and the energy that everybody brings into those skills. So for example, I could teach all of us how to do really, really great feedback today. You guys could get off this call and be like, "Wow, I just figured out how to have a really difficult conversation. She taught us all these tools to collaborate better. We got feedback tools." But if your energy and intention underneath those tools is not clean and clear and positive, then it doesn't matter how good you are at leading. Your impact is at best leaving opportunity on the table, and at worst leaving dead bodies behind. That make sense?
Yeah, Anise, can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
So do you think that in the way you present yourself is situational? In other words, does it change given the situation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I believe so. I believe that it's important for us to be grounded in who we are, and then to be able to walk into a room. This is Kevin, right?
Yes.
To be able to walk into a room and to really read what's happening in the room, and to be able to work with the people in that room without giving ourselves away. So I can go into a room that's really low energy, and if I go in there and I'm like, "Hey there, hi there, ho there, okay guys, we're going to turn this stuff around, it's going to be great," and the rest of the room is down here, if my team is down here, I've lost absolute credibility with them. So I've got to be able to go in and hold my energetic state, which might actually be very rich and full, and I've got to be able to, I can read the room, see where people are at, and then notice, okay, how do I need to show up with them in order to increase our rapport and bring them to a better place? And that's a leadership skill. That is an absolute leadership skill. There's internal energy, which is about how I take care of myself, even down to my nutrition, right? There's how I take care of myself, the thoughts that I think, the assumptions that I make. And then there's external energy, which is how I interact with the people around me. And a lot of times people will be really good at one or the other, but they don't have the balance. And so they end up burning out, or they end up being resentful, or they end up leaving dead bodies behind. So I would say it's situational. Does that answer your question, Kevin?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously I could go on and on and on. I mean, the bottom line of where I want to kind of kick this off and then open up, like have more dialogue around this is you guys probably know people in your lives who are really great at creating impact and leading, but the people that they're leading, there's not a lot of trust. Maya Angelou said, they may not remember what you said, they may not remember what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. Right? So you might have an amazing leader who's doing a great job at doing all these skills, but his impact on people is not great, or he's burning out. His family's falling apart, his health's falling apart, whatever. Then you have the other end of the spectrum where you've got somebody who's really great at taking care of themselves and they're really present, but they're not doing a very good job of the leadership skills. And so they're unable to create impact. And the work that I do with people is about how they integrate both of those pieces. So, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a lot to think about. I'd be curious for you guys, what is coming up? Like, you all have fairly nice sized, you've got a chunk of people working with you. You've got small teams and big teams. I'd be curious, like, what are the things that you see that you bump up against the most? What of this is resonating for you? Where do you see that, that you lose presence? I have like a million questions for you, but let's just hear some back.
Well, I think and this is probably common to a lot of companies, but we definitely, when things get really busy and it's, whether it's seasonal or not, it's becoming more regular, is that it's often, the focus is on just getting the work done. And then those kind of things that you really want to kind of, are important from a cultural point of view, they often slip to the back burner. And so I think it's what I've seen is that it's the discipline to recognize the importance of each. Like you need to have the intensity in the work, but you also need to have the discipline to keep your principles of what makes your company great.
Yeah.
But I think it's easy to let the other stuff slide when there's the clients and everything like that you need to focus on. So I mean, part of that is I think growth, in terms of growing and a lot of people working heavy hours because you need to bring on more people. And so I think that's often what we see is that in those intense times, it's hard to it's hard to kind of do everything.
Agreed, completely agreed. Do other people bump up against that? I'm sure, right? We're all human beings. I bump up against that. I teach this stuff and I bump up against that. Here's something to think about. You guys know that phrase, "I'll sleep when I'm dead"? Everybody on this call's heard that, right? It totally makes me crazy. It makes me pull my hair out because what happens is especially when those things are happening, that the most intuitive thing to do is to really focus in and to push harder and to work harder and to make that stuff happen and to put things like culture and self-care and presence on the back burner. If we can just get through this thing, then I'll take time for this. And what I find is that the self-care piece, if you can start to model and support your team in taking better care of themselves and taking a moment just to get present to what's happening, that's actually what's going to save you a ton of time. It's so counterintuitive, but I see it all the time. It's we're moving fast. So if we can stop and look at, okay, what do you guys need to do to take care of yourselves? And, what's the impact that you want to have right now? Then all of a sudden that invites a moment of presence, and I'm going to be much clearer headed to make decisions that are going to help get those things done that you're talking about. There's the belief is that the culture gets created by leaders in the company. The leadership team creates a culture, the founder creates the culture. But what actually I see is true is that the culture is emanated by everybody that shows up. So if you guys did nothing else today except for went back to your team and started to model just a more intentional level of presence and started to show like the self-care piece is actually really important for your team, that right there, if you have everybody taking care of themselves and being present, that creates a different kind of culture. And then you're better able to handle the overwhelm that comes at you. That's what I find over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The other piece is giving people the space to, you know, there's one side of present, which is how I impact you guys, but there's the other side of presence, which is how are you guys impacting me? And can I really hold my space when I am really, really overwhelmed and when I've got a lot of people wanting stuff from me and maybe I have that angry customer? Can I take really good care of myself and hold my space so that doesn't knock me over, you know, and I'm not like in the gutter? You know, can I do that? So there's two sides to it. Yeah. What else is coming up for you guys?
Yeah, Anise, this is Kevin. You know, I think one of the things that is really difficult in this area is this line of authenticity. You know, when you've got to be real careful that you don't walk in the room and try to be something or someone you're not in order to force this positive energy into the room. And it particularly shows up when the pressure starts cooking and that facade drops. And, you know, so I think authenticity is a real struggle in this area.
I agree. I have this thing called the energetic xylophone that I do with people, and there's so one of the biggest I'm so glad you brought that up, Kevin, because one of the biggest misconceptions I see about people when they think about bringing energy into a room or positive energy is they think that they've got to go in and be bouncing off the walls and a big smile, and you know, even if the team is crashing, I've got to go in and pretend like nothing's wrong. And I think that's the biggest mistake we can make. I think that's a huge mistake. Just because something's hard though, and the room is in a low state, doesn't mean that I can't go in there and have a really high quality of presence and be able to meet my team where they're at. So there's nothing about, like, what I want to make sure is that there's nothing about what I'm saying that says, go in, be fake, you know, fake it till you make it, bring it up. Like, I'm not at all advocating for that. I'm just advocating for be so aware of how you're showing up and how you want to meet your team where they're at so that you can provide such a quality level of presence that they can deal with whatever's happening much more effectively. And the energetic xylophone is looking at, you know, if you think about emotions, you know, if we looked at a 10 would be, you know, we all have our different form of an energetic xylophone, but for me, like a 10 is the state of love, joy, gratitude, appreciation, same thing. And then a 0 is a state of absolute apathy, hate, judgment, resentment, right? So if you notice where you're at, you know, in between might be things like curiosity and, blame would be lower on the xylophone. Feeling like a victim, out of control, that would be lower on the xylophone. Feeling like you want to contribute, that's higher up. So if you start to notice where you're at on that xylophone, going into that room, Kevin, if I'm at like a 3, if my energy is at a 3, and I'm really in a state of blame, let's just use blame. I'm in a state of blame, like the company, we're having a hard time, you know, I'm in a state of blame or I'm in a state of sadness or fear. If I go into that room, you know, one way to deal with it is just to tell my team, yeah, you know what, I'm really afraid right now. And let's figure out how we're going to get through this together. And that can be a really beautiful way to work through that. Sometimes I've got to actually come in and I have to be a little bit higher quality of presence or a higher quality of energy that I'm putting in. So instead of me bebopping from a 3 up to a 10 and being really unauthentic, I might just tap into gratitude. You know, like, hey guys, I know we're having a really hard time right now, but I am feeling so grateful for what we're actually creating as a company, how we're working through these challenging times. So notice where you're at. And what I find is that if you can tap into a little bit higher on the energetic xylophone than where you are, that can help you have a stronger state to go in and work with your team from. Does that make sense?
It does. And what about the makeup in the room? Does that shift, you know, the type of people that are in the room?
Does it shift them?
But in other words, how you choose to approach a situation is also got to be dependent upon the type of people in the room, not only the energy that they currently have, but I would think just their style, their general makeup. So whether you're dealing with accountants or artists, or you kind of pick the spectrum.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's knowing your audience. I think it's also you can't. We're all responsible for the experience we're having. So I get to choose the kind of experience I want by what I bring into that room. So whether they're an accountant or an artist or what their makeup is, they're all responsible for the experience they're having. So if they're walking in and they got a bad attitude, they're creating part of their experience. And I found it's not really useful to go in and scold them and tell them, okay, guys, create a better experience. Instead, what I find is more effective is if you go in, Kevin, as you go in and you model being responsible for the experience that you want to create, and you model being present and connecting with them, that automatically, just that little bit, it could be the next step to having them start to go, how am I contributing to my experience? So I think you're talking. I mean, I think we're talking about similar things, but a little bit different. One is, I would say, yes, definitely know who you're talking to, so you know how to meet them where they're at. And the other is being so good at holding your state and modeling responsibility for your own impact that they start to actually see that model and actually start to practice it themselves. Does that feel like that would work? I can't see you, so I'm looking all over the room. Yeah.
I am nodding in agreement. So just
okay, cool. All right, good. Well, I see your phone. Your phone looks great. I just don't know what you're doing. What else is coming up for you guys? Is this helpful? Does this feel like important stuff to you to be thinking about? Glenn, where are you at?
I apologize. I put it on mute because they're building a deck outside of my place.
You're good.
But yeah, it's very helpful, and for me, I'm transferring it over to what I know about the individuals in the room businesses. And so one of my questions is actually, with Aaron, because you have a team that goes out away from your office every day. And how would somebody establish a presence with a group that's not, physically away from where he's at, in creating an energetic presence that's maybe not in the room necessarily, but in how he's interacting. And so I don't know if that's a concern of yours, Aaron, but as I'm listening, and also having seasonal workers, where you have a force that maybe isn't as accustomed to your personality, isn't as engaged with you on a regular basis because they only see you 6 months a year, or if you're in Chicago, the summer, which is 2.5 weeks, or at least it is right now. How can you create a presence with that type of employee? And I think this would also kind of apply to what Kevin Lynch is dealing with his with the seasonal business as well.
So the question is, how do you guys as employers, how do you create a presence with your employees when they're away from you? Is that the question?
That's kind of what I understand their businesses. I think something that could relate.
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm wrong.
Does that resonate for you, Aaron?
Yeah. If you want me to answer, I'll tell you. I won't stop. But one of the things about me, and Glenn knows me a little bit, is I'm a big personality. So it's not that I totally agree when I get to know what you're saying, and I think that there's a time where sometimes as a leader we have to take a step back, because it's sometimes lonely at the top because you can't be everything to everybody and you can't always show exactly how you feel. But I'm not saying fake it till you make it either. I'm not saying that. But there's a time and place for certain emotions, and so you have to be cognizant of, if I walk in and I'm down, I will immediately drag everybody down because I'm the guy that everybody looks to.
Definitely.
So as far as that, I think that that's great. And I mean, I made a little note that take a moment to get present is a great little piece that I would take from this, and that I would encourage people, and even to set the tone, to bring people into the certain presence that you want them to be in, to be able to set the tone of certain meetings when people are not quite where you want them. But in the answer to Glenn's question, we have a saying that is one of Jack Stack's principles that we always been preaching here forever, and that's shit rolls downhill, right? So, I set the tone that people that are drawn to me and drawn to this organization, that tone is consistent throughout. And people try to emulate the behavior of the leader. So if you look at the organization, when people come in and they get to know me, like, no one leaves my presence not excited about what we're doing, because I'm excited about it. And it goes back to the authenticity and genuineness. Like, you have to be genuine and you have to be authentic. But I am. This is me. This isn't like some BS act. Like, I am excited about what we're doing. We're building a national company. Like, years from now, it'll be like I was on that call with Aaron Moore. Like, that's the truth of what I'm living and where I'm going. So that's what I think is, that's how I'm able to do it with people in the field. We bring them in monthly. We have leadership meetings. I send emails regularly to our entire team, and that keeps the tone. And that's why in the field, it's not really an issue. And then to that extent, with new and seasonal, we have a comprehensive new hire orientation. So we show people that we're interested in their well-being from the beginning, that most people in an industry like ours would never take time to do. So that's how we set the tone from the beginning, and then that just follows through.
That's great. That's so great. Okay, so are we all lucky to be on this call with Aaron Moore right now, or what?
Yeah, of course.
I feel like we need to document the date.
I don't mean it like that. It's not.
Golden Kid MTV.
I paint a room for you, man.
Yeah,
I love
I'll paint the bedroom if you want.
I know. I want to come be on your team. I love it. I love it. I love it. The thing I'd be curious for you, Aaron, is so as the leader of your company, how do you feel like you've got a lot of demands? Like, how do you feel? Do you feel good? Like, do you feel energized and, really good at the end of the day? Or do you feel, I'm just curious, like, how would you, for yourself, that's your impact on other people. It sounds like it's amazing, but for you, yeah.
So it varies, right?
Yeah.
So, a lot of days I'm really happy. In June, I'll have my third child, 3 under 4. So if you should know that I have a lot on my plate. So yeah, it varies. So most days it's pretty good, but some days it's better than others. That's just the reality. I'm not going to say that everything's perfect all the time. That would be BS.
Yeah, yeah. That would be the other thing. So it's looking at both sides, right? So if you're having a great impact on your team, and they're, what they're getting motivated by is or inspired by is your purpose. The inspiration, people talk about, they want to be inspired, they want to be more inspiring, and the path to inspiration is actually, I believe, through purpose. So you're out there talking about your purpose, you're getting people trudged up. That's where they're finding their inspiration. So, right?
It's right there.
Yeah.
I can show you.
Right. And everybody in this community, my experience with everybody in this community is awesome about purpose and values. We wouldn't all be in this community if we didn't care a ton about this, right? So that's awesome. And that is going to have a huge ripple effect towards everybody that works with you. The other piece to look at is just noticing, how we all take care of ourselves as leaders, how we nurture our own internal space around the way that we think about things, things as simple as, how we take care of ourselves with our food and our sleep and all that. Because what I found is that the stronger our energetic state is, the stronger our field is by how we're taking care of ourselves and the thoughts that we're thinking, and making sure that when we're out there giving and giving and giving, that we're getting nourished back. The stronger that state is, the more powerful we are, even more powerful in being out there with our purpose and inspiring people. So does that make sense? So it's both for everybody on this call. It's looking at how are you showing up for your team, which there's nobody, I've never met a small giant that's like showing up badly for their team. You guys are amazing at this. But it's looking at how are you showing up for your team? What are the places where you're seeing where energy is low? And what can you do to kind of help shift that? Whether that's getting into a one-on-one conversation, Glenn, this is where I thought you were going with your question earlier. It's like, people are out there and they're at different locations. You guys are spread across, geography. They don't always have the ability to tap into your presence, to get inspired. So it's teaching them how you guys teach them to show up for themselves and to be really intentional about their purpose and how their purpose ties into the company's purpose, and then how they take care of themselves from an IEP standpoint, and then how that's impacting your customers. So it's kind of like food coloring in water. You can't separate presence out. You can't separate intention out. It's in everything that we do. So it's looking at both sides. Kevin Pedersen, how is this landing for you? Questions? I mean, anything? Like, I want to.
Well, I guess for us, we're set up to have virtual meetings. So we very rarely meet as a company all together physically. So like at least half of our employees are in other cities, and so even those that are in the same city, they'll come in and video conference from their home office, and that's what we've I guess one of the benefits that we've provided to people is to kind of that the ability to kind of work the flexible hours and things like that, and so it is when we do have the meetings, we do ask everybody to have their video on so that we can kind of see and everything like that. And so there is the ability to kind of see the presence and get some kind of energy, I guess, from that, or positive or negative, because we do experience, negative energy on video conferencing just like you do in face-to-face meetings. So yeah, we do face that definitely, and I think there's probably a role there for thinking about kind of what you're bringing and how it's affecting others, because we've certainly seen that. Like I said, there are some that depending on the situation, I think, as Kevin was saying. And the situation could be the people in the room or the type of situation that exists at that time. It's you can definitely see that there's those different levels on the xylophone occurring, and so I think that awareness is good. It's being able to kind of tune your xylophone to the situation.
And definitely. And I think there's two questions that if I can get people to start asking themselves these. I mean, there's several ways like you could start integrating this right this minute, right? So 2 questions. If I can get people just to ask themselves these 2 questions, this creates a pretty dramatic shift. And it's not just for you guys as the leaders of the company, it's for everybody in the company. So the first question is, what is my intention? What's my intention? So, for what I'm about to say, what is the intention of this? For what I want to get out of this fishbowl, what's my intention? For how I want Kevin Pedersen to feel on this call, what's my intention? That's one question. What's my intention? And the second question is, how am I showing up? And if I can get people to think about those 2 things, because they're super, super related, the clearer I am on my intention and my intended impact, the easier it's going to be for me to show up in order to get that impact, right? And does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
If you take, I've got this thing I do, it's called 5 steps to intentional impact. And we're starting to really see, so a lot of the companies we're doing this work with, they're starting to integrate the energy checks at the beginning of the meeting. They're starting to put cues up around the organization, like how are you showing up? What do you need right now? And it's really interesting to see, we've got about 6 different groups right now that have been sending me, here's how we're integrating. And, one, like Tasty Catering right now, who's part of our community, they have got, I don't know, Glenn, have you seen this yet? They've got the energetic xylophone basically without even knowing about they've got 0 to 10. And they go in and they have a picture of themselves on a magnet and they put it wherever they're at. And what that does is that opens up one, awareness, because the minute I say I'm at a 4 and I've got the safety to say that with my team, I'm already at like at a 5. My state has already shifted, you know, and then it also gives them the ability to be a little bit more empathetic and understand where they're at. So that's kind of fun. But, you know, integrating things like the energy check, that will get people present in their bodies right off the bat. And if words like energy are going to trigger your people, I was in Chicago all last week. We put 80 people through this program, and it was really funny because some of them were like, oh, energy, vibration, I don't want to hear those words, you know. And so it was like, okay, fine, don't worry about it. Don't listen to those words. Let's just work with you on presence. But it really is, I mean, it is, everything's energy. So just getting people to notice where they're at, that right there can be a shifter. So 5 steps to intentional impact. The first step is, before you go into any meeting, any phone call, even this fishbowl right here, first question is, what are my intended outcomes? And you guys are welcome to share these with your teams. And if you guys, there's a tool you can download from my site. It's free. You're welcome. Like, you can share this with your team too. So what is my intended outcome for whatever I'm about to do? Okay. Number 2, second most important question is, what is the emotional impact I want to have on the people in this room, or in this conversation, or in this audience if you're speaking, like whatever, you know, what's the emotional impact, which means how do you want them to feel? You know, so do you want them to feel you know, like they can trust you? Do you want them to feel safe? Do you want them to feel that they're, you know, like they're believed in? The third question to look at is, how am I going to have to show up in order to create that impact? You know, so, and I'll do an example in a minute, but how am I going to have to show up to create that impact? The fourth question is, what will I have to believe in order to show up that way? And the final question is, what will I have to do? What do I need to do? And this is usually what most people think of on a meeting or on something they're going to do. They think about what they have to do first before they think about who they're going to have to be. So we want to look at, what am I going to have to do in order to show up that way? Or not just to do that way, but in order to get those outcomes. So for example, if I think about, let's just think about the fishbowl. You know, or Glenn, I can think about our call that we had yesterday. I mean, you guys can put this to yourselves for even a meeting that you have today would be really fun. So would that be helpful to do it actually? You guys want to do it?
Sure.
Okay. So what, is this a yes, or is this a call me, or what is this? King 10? You got 2 minutes? What is this? Okay. Glenn and I didn't get our hand signals yet before we did this.
That's the old school hang loose sign. That's fun. Yeah, I agree.
So hang loose. So here we go. Woo. All right. So we're doing this. Okay. So first question, think about a meeting or something you've got to do today that's really important to you. What are the outcomes you want to get out of that meeting? And keep it pretty simple, 1 to 3. So if I was doing that for this call today, I would say, okay, the outcomes I want to get out of today, I want to connect with the Small Giants community. I want to share some content. I want to know them a little bit better, and I want to contribute. Those are my outcomes, right? This is an open call, so I wasn't sure exactly what was going to be coming into the call, so I couldn't say, I want to make sure they all understand this exercise. Like, it was a little bit broader. Those are my outcomes. So you guys do your outcomes? Okay. Emotional impact. What's the emotional impact I want to have on this group? Well, I want them to feel safe to speak up about whatever they want to share. I want to feel connected. I want them to feel like this content has got, you know, whether it's in a huge way or in a little way, it's got some gold in it for them, right? So that's an important piece for emotional impact. Okay, so you guys do your emotional impact for your thing today. This could be a conversation with your spouse or your child. This applies to everything. All right. The third thing is, how am I going to have to show up? So if I'm thinking about how I'm going to have to show up in order to create that impact, well, I better show up as present. I better listen. I better show up with positive energy. or at least authentic energy. I didn't have to come in here and like bebop and cheerlead and all that. I didn't have to do that. I just had to show up, but I had to show up with a quality of presence so I could be with all of you, right? Okay. Number 4 is, what do I have to believe in order to show up that way? Well, before I got on this call, I would have to believe that, 1, I care about you guys. I can contribute something to each of you in some way, shape, or form. And that I've seen this, and that I believe in this content. So those beliefs allow me to be able to show up congruently. If I didn't believe in this group, like before I came to this call, and think about where you might do this with, in your life. If I came to this call and I was like, oh my God, this is going to be such a hard fishbowl. Oh, this is going to be the most painful hour of the day. I can't believe Glenn talked me into this. And I bring that energy to you guys. We're sunk. It's going to be painful. You guys are going to be hanging up. You're going to be checking your email. Like it's done. It's not going to happen. Okay. So my beliefs have to be congruent and real in order for me to show up in a way that's going to serve. And then the final thing is, what am I going to have to do? Well, I was like, okay, I might teach them energetic xylophone. I might give them some tools. I'm going to give them a kind of a high level overview of how this stuff works. And I'm going to give them space to talk about what's going on for them so they can ask questions. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. There's so much more. I mean, I could keep you guys here for 3 days if you want. So, but those are some things, quick things, be present, check your energy on those 3 different levels. Ask yourself what your intention is and how you want to show up. And then if you want to go deep, do the 5 steps to intentional impact.
Anise, you mentioned that you could keep us here for 3 days, but I think technically you do have something that you can invite them to for 2. Is that right?
For 2, I do. Okay. I can't keep you here for 3 days, but if you come out to Sacramento, I can keep you there for 2. We're doing an event in May. So I get people into a room for 2 days. And for the first day, we focus on internal IEP, which is all about your internal presence and how you show up and leadership skills and all these pieces. And then the second day is focused on external IEP, which is how you now project that onto your team and into your relationships and into your culture. And so, we're doing one in May. We're doing it on May 6th and 7th. You guys are welcome to come to it. I would be so excited to have anybody from Small Giants in that room. We've got like a really fun group that's gathering. They're flying in from all over the place. We've got like a mix of designers, teachers, executives, an MBA student. Like it's the biggest mix of people we've had so far. And 20% for Small Giants members. We did an extra 20% discount for Small Giants members. So if you guys are interested in that, you can look at iepmethod.com or anisecavanaugh.com. Glenn, are you going to send out any follow-up to them?
I am.
Let's do it that way. I won't give you guys URLs and stuff. But one thing to know is that you have, as a Small Giants member, if you guys are interested in this work, you have 20% off, period. There is an early bird registration, which is ending tonight at midnight, which saves 50% on tuition. So if you sign up today, you literally save $600. So it's not a bad deal. So that would be awesome. Would love to have you out. Glenn might come. We're working on him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any other questions? I mean, I know we jumped right into that, but thanks for asking me, Glenn. Oh, the other thing to know is that I want you to come to the event because I want you to get the experience and really have it in your body. We got to talk about stuff for an hour, but it literally is. We do take such a deep dive over those 2 days. So you can come to that. If for some reason you can't come to that, at a minimum, please go to one of those sites and download the free toolkit, because the free toolkit will give you different places to check. It's got a miniature cultural assessment to look at what is your cultural IEP. There's like all sorts of stuff that once you get into my list, you get a ton of free stuff. So at a minimum, do that. And, at a maximum, or not at a maximum, at a next step, come to my event. It'll be fun.
Great product placement, Glenn.
I know, right? That was so smooth. We actually didn't plan that. We didn't plan that. That was not planned. That was so smooth it threw me.
I'll tell you what, I always I'm really, really critical and very careful with the community about hard sells and what I'm putting in front of folks to say, listen, this is something that I think you'll get value out of. And so, but I've known Anise for 4.5 years now, and she's been such a huge part of the community's success and what we've been doing. I don't feel a single bit of guilt giving her a minute and a half to invite you to come experience that through. I apologize for the power saw in the background. But I'll be sending an email out with the links to Anise's site and to that toolkit. We've got a couple more Fishbowls that are coming up here. One middle of April 17th. That's going to be with Paul talking about culture and very, very straightforward, the mechanics of culture. We've got another one coming up May 1st with Raul Candeloro, who's our executive director, but also the editor of Venda Mais, which is Brazil's largest sales magazine, talking about whether the values of your sales team connect to the values of your company. So we've got a lot of exciting stuff. You'll see a couple more emails coming out from me here within the next couple of hours. So be on the lookout. Don't hit delete if you see Small Giants Glenn pop up. But I hope everybody got something of value out of this. I know personally I did. I'm going to apply these 5 questions to a girl that I have to talk to later tonight.
This stuff is great for dating. I will tell you, I hear this over and over again. No, I swear, I hear this over and over again. I actually was asked last week, are you going to open up a dating arm of the company? I mean, really, like, not kidding. This stuff works for dating.
I plan. So
I thought that. I think you came from my therapist's office. Your wife will remember how you make her feel.
Oh, really?
No.
Well, yeah. Be quiet, Miss Angelou, man. She never gets it wrong. I really appreciate her. But yes, your wife will remember how you make her feel. True. You could play with this with your wife. I was with a group. We went and did a follow up last week or 2 weeks ago, and the guy says to me, he goes, "Oh my gosh," he goes, my employees keep asking me, what did we do for 2 days in that room with you? Because we did a private event for their company. He said, what did we do for 2 days in that room with you? What happened and how can they get some? And he goes, and my wife wants to know what happened to me. He said, because his relationship and how he's showing up with her and even how he's showing up with the kids soccer team he's coaching is the energy is shifting. So he's like, it's just, I'm so much more intentional about it. And it's like, he goes, I'm actually getting a lot more of what I want. It's kind of like a trip, but this can all be used. I will leave you guys with this. All of this can be used. These are superpowers you have, and they can be used for good or evil. So you want to use them to create the impact that you want to create that's positive in the world, which everybody in this community is up to majorly great things around creating positive impact. So I'm not even worried that you guys would use these for evil, but they can be done for evil.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for having me.
thanks, everybody, for participating. We'll see you next time.
Okay, well that's it for this one. Check out more Fishbowls exclusively for the Small Giants community at smallgiants.org.